Our final speaker is Emma Vartolomei.
Emanuela Vartolomei.
Okay, there you go. Who will speak about the Wall Street without walls.
Right. Wall Street has been set up in Oxford 2 or 3 years ago when I had a research project and I had to go along and just see what is happening in the financial innovation space. My first stop was in social finance, just because Oxford has a great center around social entrepreneurship, and as you know, there are a lot of resources available out there. And starting with that project that I was running during my studies in Oxford, this is the final outcome, and it is All Street, just because it's the Wall Street without walls. Now, just to give you a bit of context around financial innovation and why did we choose to start All Street. As you probably are aware because you are here and this is a new finance kind of meetup, there is quite a polarized debate around the role of financial innovation. And you have, on one hand, you have the people that are looking at the financial innovation, especially through the lenses that came after the latest financial crisis, and they are saying this is just a way in which you can structure complexity and just exploit uninformed investors. And this is, you know, you can build up a valid argument around this. In the same time, there is another group of thinkers, like for example Niall Ferguson in his latest book, The Ascent of Money, which I strongly recommend you to read if you haven't done it so far. You can easily read, you know, only few pages, and you will end up with the conclusion that the financial development that is part of the current way of living has been supported by waves of financial innovation. So with that in mind, you can see why there is a need to bring a kind of balanced view. In the latest special report that The Economist published like 2-3 editions ago, I liked Andrew Palmer's short introduction to that special report, and he said financial innovation can bring a lot of good things, but it's the excess that we need to curb. So we prefer to be, you know, in this kind of way of thinking about financial innovation. Now, in this context, there is this prevalent way of thinking that I'm using this Wall Street way of thinking. And this Wall Street way of thinking, it is concentrated on regulation and how us as a society, we need to increase the regulation in order to cope with what happened in the current financial crisis. And the latest social expression of this is the Occupy Wall Street movement. And the mantra behind this way of thinking is that the financial system needs to be changed. And this seems to be a kind of general understanding and agreement around the world currently. Now we are looking to this way of thinking, and we are asking yourself how it is possible to change a financial system that is part of how the current society is running. Is this something that we should aim towards? So All Street is coming into this debate space, and we are saying financial system just needs to be engaged in the conversation. So that's why we believe that an open finance movement that can build up around sustainable financial innovation needs to be in place. And this is the philosophy around All Street. And now, if we want to go into more details in what we believe in, I'm just using this kind of diagram. And you can look at this diagram using a lot of different lenses. And if we want to use one of the theory of systemic change that is out there, and let's pick up, for example, the Berkana Institute, and they developed the theory that this theory is practically supporting the way in which a system is moving from a current state towards a new state. In the system theory, you know, if you are using any kind of physics principle, you will see that the system will change into the next stage, going through a period of transformation. And that time when the system is just reshaping, it is a very vulnerable state of being. And we believe that the current financial system, it is in that state of being. Because you have all these stabilizers of the old system, the current, the existing financial players, and you have the new players that are coming in. And in this inflection point, you need institutions that can cope with this change. And the current agreement around how to name this institution, it is like bridge builders, or if you want to use what Stanford Social Innovation Reviews is using, is the concept of collective impact initiative. And what is that? It's just practically, it's a stakeholder approach to solve intricate, complex issues that are not easy to understand and not easy to come up with solution either. So this is All Street. This is where we think that there is an opportunity for providing a new way of engagement in the financial innovation space. And we want to be the bridge builders, those collective impact people that will bring both the existing and the new players at the same table and create an independent space for debate, like a neutral body. Now, our mission. Our mission is to coordinate improvement at every stage for individuals, companies, NGOs, and government. So the approach that we are going to take is going to be a human-centric approach. We are going to include in the way we are looking to this financial innovation space, the users in the center. And the next question is how we are going to do that. It's just such a complex space. You can, just come up with a lot of different ways in which you can leverage the system. And our operating model that we choose to deploy has practically 3 different stages. And I'm going to stop at the first stage, and I'm going to bring here an important paper that actually is not a paper, it's a speech that has been held by Andrew Haldane from the Bank of England. And his speech was named Towards a Common Language, and common language in financial services. And the way in which he's building his argument in his speech, he's looking back to 2 industries. One that is the product supply chain, and the other one which is the internet. And he says, in both of these 2 cases, a common language brought significant advantages for both, the industry and the society as a whole. So if you are thinking in the product supply chain, you will see how the barcode has just changed completely the way in which we are living our life. A simple barcode. In the same time, the example in the internet industry is how the universal internet protocol has just changed the way in which we were able to use internet, and how the communication has been developed after that. It was a completely new age. And his conclusion was that right now, finance is at the stage where the product supply chain was years ago and the internet was years ago. So we need initiative in order to come up with a common language in the financial space. Now, this is the first stage that we would like to build upon, and right now in this first stage we have the main project that we are currently working on and we are focusing on, and I'm going to describe a bit later on. What we aim to achieve, what it is our final kind of objective, is to create a governance structure. It was very interesting to see the presentation in the crowdfunding space, just because that is a perfect example of how a governance structure exists at the level of an industry that is just starting to develop. And we don't have this kind of governance structure in place for the financial innovation space. So this is what All Street aims to have, I don't know, in several years' time. We can't really put a timeline there. And this is the second stage where developing communities of practice, it is going to be part of the process of our systemic process. Now, just for you to understand how we are going to look at this financial innovation landscape, we are coming up with a certain taxonomy. So based on the research that I had in Oxford and based on my previous experience in the financial services, I think there are several main innovation islands that we need to address in order to comprehend and to be able to capture the multitude of the stakeholders that are already playing in this space. And there are several innovation islands that we are going to address. One of them, and it's important and it is related with the technology, is the financial infrastructure. Islamic finance is another big innovation island, as you know. The social finance, the environment finance, the peer-to-peer banking, bottom of the pyramid finance or alternative finance, capital market instruments, health finance, retirement finance, and there are more out there. So what we are coming with in the space is this suggestion for a taxonomy, and we are going to use a design thinking approach in order to develop this way of creating a common language in the financial innovation space. And this is how All Street is going to look. Now, what is our main current project? That project that will bring the common language, the project that will start to create a certain way of talking and just build the bridges between these innovation islands that are out there. As I've said, it is a human-centric approach. So you have, on one hand, you will have the individual, the companies, and the NGOs and governments, and all the other financial innovation islands. And what we are coming also, what we are bringing also to the space is a definition of financial innovation, because currently the general understanding it is that financial innovation, it is related with capital market instruments, the development of derivatives and CDOs and all those complicated things that no one knows what they are really up to. But in the same time, if you remember the landscape that I've just presented, the capital market is just one island out of 10, 12 islands out there that are promoting what? New products and services, new processes, business models, and all of these are starting with the creation and development and delivery that are coming from both the new and the existing players, because financial innovation is not coming only from the peer-to-peer island. There are a lot of initiatives within the current banks that are part of the system, and we are going to cover both disruptive and incremental innovation. So what is the project status right now? Has been started in Oxford. We've been running several focus groups there and individual research. The concept has been launched in Luxembourg at the Financial Innovation Conference in September. And right now we are building the pilot project for the Open Finance book. Now I would like to give a bit more details about what it is, this Open Finance book, how we are going to build up this. The initial prototype that we are going to put forward is something similar with an enhanced wiki. It's very simple. It is a tested concept. We believe that that will be easy to engage with, and we will see this is open innovation, and that's why we are going to use a pilot project in order to test the platform and see how we can engage the community. So we are going to have maximum 4 different innovation islands, engage approximately 100 people. That will be like 25 people for each island, and we are going to test for minimum of 6 months. And if you want to get in touch with us, please check our blog, and also this is my email address. And that is all.
Donald Chapin, Business Semantics Limited. I'm involved in standards work in the area of defining the meaning of things and business modeling. And are you building on any of the existing work that's being done in financial industry terminology and definitions? I'd be really interested to hear what you're doing about that.
That is a very good question, and this is going to be part of the pilot project. We are not going to provide a certain view around the common concepts that are currently in use. We are just going to engage with the practitioners, academics, researchers, and all the other stakeholders across the innovation islands in order for them to put forward and agree on the common concepts. So we are going to be that place where the debate can be held, because the process of engagement is a learning process. And just by that's why All Street, in a way, it's a social innovation in itself, because it's going to be a social process that will create knowledge and common language. So we are going to engage with people that can leverage the existing knowledge. We are not going to reinvent the wheel there, and just open it to debate to the stakeholders that are part of the innovation islands.
Hi. You talk about a new paradigm. I guess the current paradigm is actually not that old. It probably dates back to mid-80s when markets were opened up over here by the Conservative government in the States as well. So we have a totally different financial market today to the one pre-1988 or whatever. That change was created by legislation. How are you going to create the energy, and over what period, to make a change that has the necessary sort of traction to really get going?
This goes back to the theory of systemic change that we are going to deploy. We are not going to consciously influence that, but that will be a result of our efforts. So just because the communities are going to be built up around these principles of sharing knowledge and building a common language, that will create the force inside of the system, and small communities that will start lobbying according to their best interest. We will not try to influence or to put forward a certain legislation or politics out there.
What sort of time scale do you think change will be noticeable?
Well, there are several collective impact initiatives in US, one that is in education, one that is in environment, one that is in childhood obesity. It is the first, you can see the change in the first 2-3 years. And you can see the seeds of change there. How much time are we going to take in order to build up a governance system? That is something that we probably going to see after those 2 or 3 years' time at the beginning.
Thank you.
You mentioned a number of areas, the boxes in your table, like business modeling, product specs, processes. What are you using as your frame of reference for documenting what a business model is, or documenting a process, or writing down whatever you're collecting in those boxes? Have you decided that yet?
No, that is going to be part of the pilot project. There are several frameworks that are already out there. So for example, in business model, we can just use the Alexander Osterwagen framework. So you can build up according to those frameworks. In each of those boxes, there are already frameworks out there. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel in neither of these.
I was just wondering which ones you picked, because when you ask people to write things down, you want to have everybody writing it down in a way where that it's integratable and consistent in some sense.
We didn't pick anything for the time being, and it will be down to the focus group, to the pilot project that has been created around a certain innovation island, to decide what is, from their perspective, the right framework to be used in order to reflect what is happening in that island. Because otherwise it's going to be an imposed framework that probably might not fit their need or might fit their need. we will have a kind of prototype structure that we will just put forward for debate, but that will be just the initial starting point of the conversation.
Hello, I'm Penny Shepherd from the UK Sustainable Investment and Finance Association. I'm interested in why you think people will play, if you like, because my experience over the last 10 years, certainly within the sustainable investment and finance area, is that language is part of the heart of competition. And people compete on language, and people compete on ownership of language. And for example, we will say the following definition means such and such, and then we will get our members, plunging in and saying, no, it doesn't, it means something different. And you'll end up with yet another boring newspaper article about language. And indeed, it's interesting looking at some of your islands, because I can test your definitions and your island boundaries based on, the existing industry. So why?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and that's the purpose of the Open Finance book, because it will bring on the same page not only one definition, but more than one, in such a way that the current knowledge that is out there should be shared. And what platform is going to have an user feedback. So people will be able to vote, as imagine on Amazon for finance. So people are going to be able to provide feedback for those concepts that are out there. And in the same way, there are several other initiatives. There is one that is doing the same thing in science, and that is called the Encyclopedia of Life. And they are using more or less the same concept. So we are going to add on that concept the user feedback, and this is going to provide transparency and the bottom-up governance structure that we aim to have for the book. But in the same time, just to build up on this answer, there are many other initiatives that are working out. Wikipedia is the basic one. If you manage to have an open finance book that will bring maybe not the intricate definitions where people are still fighting for controlling, maybe not at that level, but if you manage to bring 80%, because these kind of fights are not happening around this knowledge universe. These kind of fights are happening on that 20%, that new knowledge that is in place. It's as if you want to use an analogy like the life cycle in an industry, the only difference is that this is a knowledge industry. So the way in which an industry is developing, initially you have a lot of different prototypes. And at the end, when the industry is ending up at the maturity stage, you will have one major prototype that is going to be imposed and widely accepted. In the same way, in the knowledge industry, you have the same things. If you are looking at different concepts as products, you will find that this debate that you've just mentioned, it is happening. But it is happening not in the majority of cases. And if this is going to be the way of engaging people to participate and to share their knowledge, maybe that's the way to leverage. So this is going to be a question that will probably be addressed during the pilot project. And I agree with you, it's not easy to leverage the knowledge sharing and distribution. But for example, Nesta put together the open book of social finance, and the way in which they did that, more or less, that open book of social finance is similar with, in theory and as a concept, with the open finance book, with what we want to do. The difference is that Nesta choose to move to have just a simple PDF file that was written by a group of people and was published as, a statement. This is what is our current understanding about the social finance. The way in which we are going to do it, this is not going to be any kind of static information, because the financial innovation space is a dynamic complex that is changing continuously. So those definitions that will engage many people will just maybe be the backbone of debates, and this will be the forum where this kind of debates can be held, because it's going to be an independent forum. And this is how I'm looking at this issue.
if you talk about the paradigm shift, I can give you one example because I was deeply involved in the microfinance. When Dr. Yunus, he was my teacher in Chittagong University. I worked as his assistant, and it took him 2 years to work in the field, and because it was basically a paradigm shift compared to the traditional finance. He started a new type of finance, which is he's called the banker to the poor, and is a microfinance for which this is a specially developed model. Are you indicating some sort of thing like this? Because no such innovation has jolted the whole world like what microfinance has done, and I was engaged directly with that. It took him 2 years to start the project, the field study, from paying from his pocket, and we volunteered for this as his student. We did not take money. We were just going to the field, paying to the poor people for financing their cow breeding, cow development, and this poultry and this. And we were realizing those money after say 10 days or 15 days, because he had to, and he was keeping all the records, and he had to wait for 2 years to get this model put in another area, in Tangail area, because he started with Chittagong. So are you trying to mean something of the paradigm shift with, are you indicating some sort of finance like this, innovative products, or you are just challenging the Wall Street?
Where if I got this question right, so in my understanding of the financial innovation, or the way in which I'm looking to the development of microfinance in the context of the landscape with 10, 12 major islands, innovation islands out there, for me microfinance is the island that has already reached its maturity level and is going right now to a kind of stable state of being. And indeed, this is the life cycle of each innovation island that is out there. Currently, microfinance, it is widely accepted, and the existing players, the existing financial players, the big banks, all of them, most of them, will have a unit that will take care of the microfinance. So this is how you are spreading ideas, just by using a pilot project, and after that, just by disseminating the best practices. And once there is a business case to be raised, the other players will just play along. And this is how I look at microfinance. If I want to use an analogy with what is happening with All Street, yes, we are taking the next probably 6 to 1 years in order to test how is this open finance book going to look like. And that's why we need people like you who would like to be part of the focus group that is going to put together the initial prototype that is going to be distributed later on. So these are my thoughts around the question. Did I answer your question?
No. When you talk about the financial innovation, the products especially. So, see, over the years, for 100 years, different types of financing products have come into operation. But during last debacle in 2007, what happened? Some of the financial products turned out to be toxic. Okay, so
yes.
That is, the instrument was developed for the purpose of the industry. But suddenly, for some reason, there was some fault in the product itself, because
yes.
the credit that has been created in a massive way should not have been done. It was very unmatchable with the existing asset class of the of the world. That's why there could be some fault. So that's why this this meltdown started. I know this will be corrected again, but I cannot challenge a product like hedge fund. I cannot challenge products like private equity and other asset classes. We cannot do this rectification in all the areas of the finance, because those have been developed, tested, used, and benefit has been derived out of those products. We cannot simply challenge.
That is such a good question, and actually it raised the case for All Street and what we want to do. And I'm going to use a very simple analogy. When eBay was started, he started with, a very basic transaction between, an existing seller and some user. So it was, an object was up for sale. And just because the sellers had more information than the buyers, it ended up that eBay was just selling a lot of lemons because the user had no clue what they were buying. The same thing is happening in the financial innovation space. And now, just to put this in context, what is Open Finance Book going to do is going to take the feedback from the user. That's why this platform is a user-centric platform. You don't know about hedge funds, but there are so many other people that are going to go on this platform, see the product that is out there, and provide feedback. And in the same way, that, for example, even in Amazon, the feedback and you can assess a product based on that feedback, and eBay is the best example for this. In the same way, you can use the current technology to develop a bottom-up governance space of the financial innovation using this kind of very, very simple approach, providing feedback both from users and from peers, because there are going to be people out there that will know that there is a forum where they can voice their concern. And this is the mission that All Street wants to achieve. This is our final mission. We want to be the platform that will bring people like you, for example, that is looking for the first time to a certain product that is new for the market. Let's say remittances. Let's say that you want to transfer money back home somewhere, and it's just like right now for remittances there are many providers, new providers, and how do you know which one should you choose? This platform will give you the inspiration that you need, first of all, to look into some other providers, and second of all, a bit of credibility around what those providers are up for. So this is the structure that we want to have in place.
I'm now confused, and the answer may unconfuse me. I thought to start with, you were trying to come up with a Wikipedia definition of bed and breakfast, instead of which it sounds now as though what you're trying to do is TripAdvisor for all the bed and breakfasts in Oxford. I can see the benefit of TripAdvisor. I can't see the benefit of developing or an interest in the bed and breakfast industry in coming up with a common definition of bed and breakfast.
Yes.
So which of the two is it that you're doing?
So the difference between bed and breakfast and All Street is that if you choose, you can go to bed and breakfast, but you can't choose, the impact of financial services in your life. So that is not something. What we want to put forward plays an important part in the way in which the society. But are you trying to do a definition? Because,
for example, if you take a term like hedge fund is not a monolith with one definition. It's a whole variety of different things. And the issue is, is XYZ, the hedge fund produced by company XYZ, what is its characteristics? It's not, how do we develop a common definition of hedge fund? Because the market, sort of innovates the definition of hedge fund. It means a different thing in 6 months' time from what it means now. But what it means now is a whole variety of different things. And it's very unlikely that there's an appetite for a single definition of hedge fund. But what there is an appetite for is potentially a TripAdvisor.
Yes.
You've gotten started now,
That was a very astute question, and I had the same confusion in my mind. So,
yes.
But you didn't answer it. Are you about defining things and definitions of terms and the terms you use in business models and product specs, or are you about user feedback? It's the same question. I didn't hear your answer.
All right, so I guess I wasn't clear. then, just to rephrase the way in which we are looking at these things, we will not be a depository for definitions. This is not the mission that we want. We will be a platform where new products, like for example, peer-to-peer banking, like Zopa. Zopa will be here, and Zopa will have a description of what they are doing, what kind of services are they offering, and their users are going to be there providing feedback. This is a kind of open innovation zone. We don't want to end up, that's why I was just addressing that, definition concept. We are not going to provide one set of definition and we'll say, yes, according to this definition, you can be on board. No. The people that will want to be part of the financial innovation platform will come up and will say, this is how we are looking to the world, and this is what we are providing.
So I understand that you're talking about a TripAdvisor that where people are giving feedback on services and products and quality and experience.
Yes, if you want to use that analogy is useful, definitely.
Emma, thank you very much.
Thank you.